let's forecast the Grizzlies' last half of this season. I mean, not half really. I guess the last part of this season. Going into the All-Star break, how are y'all feeling about where the Grizzlies stand right now?
Gabe, you want me to start it?
You go ahead and start.
All right.
I'll fill in.
I think starting it with Jaren is probably the way to go. Obviously, the way that he's played this year, and if he continues playing the way that he has for the majority of the season, then you have to feel good about it. Because if Jaren is leading the charge and Ja is your number two, which nobody would have expected, like Jaren kind of surpassing Ja this year, I think you're in a good spot. And then with Desmond Bane also, and I think we get to see continued growth of some of these young guys as well, with Zach Edey and Jalen Wells and a couple of other guys that we've seen throughout this year. Gigi Jackson finally getting back into the swing of things. I think you have to feel good about it, but I think the question that's been asked about them all year is like, what's the ceiling? Like, what's the cap for this team? Can they go to a Western Conference Finals? Can they compete for that? Because they've been in a similar situation that they are right now, and they've fallen short. Like, specifically when you think about 2 years ago, weren't they the 2 seed in the playoffs, and they lost to 7 seed Lakers in the playoffs? So I think that's going to kind of be the stigma around this team until they prove people wrong, is can they advance in the playoffs? Because even though they've had this core for a number of years with Jaren and Ja and Desmond, they just haven't been able to get very far. And they've been competitive in most of those series, like thinking back to the Jazz series 4 or 5 years ago, whenever that was.
Right.
Kind of the same thing. It felt like that. I think they were a 2 or 3 seed that year as well. So it's just like they've been really good in the regular season again this year. Can that translate into the playoffs? Can they win some of these 7-game series against some of the other top teams in the conference?
I'm generally optimistic about the Grizzlies.
Yeah.
But I think there's a pretty big portion of my brain that is very skeptical of what they can actually do. And there's a lot of reasons why that. Jaren Jackson Jr. is furthest from that. I think he's the reason that they can get over the top if everything else falls into line. But a couple of questions. John Moran, is he ever going to find like his full swagger night tonight?
Yeah.
Are we going to be able to see that?
Yeah.
How are the Grizzlies prioritizing getting him going? I want to see how that works, because sometimes they can do the high pick and roll, sometimes they ignore it. But he has had a couple of games as of late before the All-Star break where he was in, 25 and 12, 25, 13. His assists were up, so that's nice. But can he recreate that swagger night to night? Another question I have: are we really going to go with this 2 rookie lineup consistently? Is that something that you can do? Like, that's a lot. That just breeds a lot of skepticism to me generally.
Yes.
Can you get away with that in the playoffs? Probably not.
Right.
I don't care how well Jalen Wells and Zach Edey have played. 2 of those guys in the starting lineup is kind of insane. You have to start Zach Edey because he's your big. I wonder what they do with Jalen Wells. You're going to have to start thinking about these things right now, because I think as a bench player, as a flamethrower off the bench with a little bit of defense, that could be nice. And then Vince Williams Jr. and Gigi Jackson are back, and you can decide from there what you want to do. Right now, I'd say Vince Williams Jr. because I think he complements that starting lineup really well with his defense, and he's a good ball mover. So I'm looking at like playoff lineups and how it may work. You may want to put him in there. And then here's my final thing. I think it sort of goes hand in hand with that conversation I just had about Vince Williams Jr. and everything else. I'm not a Taylor Jenkins supporter, nor am I like his biggest enemy. I'm not one that blames him for everything. I think he's a good coach. I want to see him, for lack of a better term, stop bullshitting around with the lineups in the second half.
Yes.
Right? Like Scottie Pippen Jr., Desmond Bane, and Ja on the floor at the same time. That never needs to happen in the second half of a basketball game down the stretch of but certainly now that we're in winning time. We're late season. We're into the playoffs.
Yes.
I am full, depending on who you have there, and I know you've dealt with a lot of injuries and guys coming back, and you have to manage minutes. First half of games, do a little bit of experimenting, see what works. Second half of the game, stick to the guys that you know are consistently going to be there and going to finish games for you.
Yeah.
There's been too many times this season where there is 6-7 minutes left in a 3-point ball game, and John Jaren are sitting on the bench still.
Yeah.
And they don't come back till 3 minutes left. And you're like, dude, like, stop flirting around. Close this game out, get the separation you need. And if you create enough separation, then you can take those guys out. I just need to see more consistency and understanding of the moment or the type of basketball you're approaching with the second half lineups he's running out there every night. And they're going to have a really tough schedule too. Like they're going to be tested. Be a lot of opportunities to prove themselves. I mean, you come directly out of the break to at Pacers, at Magic, at Cavs, 3 playoff teams in the East. Then you have Suns, Knicks. That's the rest of February for you. You have the 4th hardest strength of schedule. So I don't think you really have an excuse to play the lineups that you've been playing the entire year. You're playing good teams, play good on good. Play your stars consistently like other teams play their stars, and I'll feel a lot better about it. But I if you can't tell, I think that's where a majority of my skepticism comes from.
Yeah.
Is Taylor Jenkins going to push the right buttons at the right time?
Yes. That's a big question, and I think both of y'all answered that question really, really well. Let's look at the standings real quick. Memphis is 8 games back from OKC. They will not catch OKC. OKC is light years. They are a devastating team. Devastating. They are
so well-rounded.
They are a half game ahead of Denver for the 3rd spot. They're in the Grizzlies are in the 2nd spot. They kind of surged up before the break too. They did. They won 5 or 6 before the break.
Hey, real quick sidebar, because you brought up the Thunder and the Nuggets directly surrounding the Grizzlies. Who's the MVP to y'all this year? SGA or Jokic?
I got to get the shy to SGA or Shea, whatever.
I mean, really, it's probably Jokic.
I swear, yes. That's how. I'm glad you answered it that way. Really, it's probably Jokic, but the end of it is
Shea
averaging 33 points per game, #1 team in the West.
Shea will probably win it, and I think it kind of goes back to like the voter fatigue. But Jokic is just doing things that we've never seen before.
Jokic is in the pantheon of great seasons all time right now.
Absolutely.
I don't think people get it. I don't think people are paying attention.
Think about that, like saying that someone is doing something that we've never really seen before in 2025 is pretty.
This is Wilt Chamberlain-esque.
Yes,
stats that he is putting together.
Yeah,
30, 12, and what is it, 10?
Yeah.
Per game.
A big man averaging a triple-double is absurd.
And he's also 2nd in the league in 3-point shooting. He's top 10 in the league in field goal percentage. He's, I think, top 4 in steals somehow.
He's
he's all over the damn place.
For points, rebounds, and assists, he's 3rd, 4th, 2nd. He's top 4 in the 3 big categories.
I'm glad y'all have my same thought, at least. Well, at least Christian does.
You couldn't tell me.
It's Jokic to me if I'm being real with myself.
Yes,
but I think that SGA will probably win it by default.
So Denver is a half game up. Houston is 2.5 games back from the Grizzlies in the 4th spot. Lakers are in the 11th spot, or in the 5th spot, 3.5 games back, or 3 games back from the Grizzlies. Where do you think the Grizzlies end up in the standings at the end of the season, in the regular season? Are they going to stay in 2, or do you think they're going to get overlapped?
I think Denver will probably pass them, just because I think we see them ramp it up a little bit more. Mm-hmm. So I think Denver probably passes them. I think they can hold off Houston though, and Houston's been really impressive this year.
They've had a rough last month. They've had a really rough.
And I think we'll start to see that a little bit more as the season goes on, just with how young they are, and they're talented. I mean, Amin Thompson, Sengun, Jalen Green, like Fred VanVleet, they have a very well-rounded roster that's built to compete for years to come. But I feel like they're kind of more where the Thunder were like 2 years ago, if that makes sense. Like they're still a little bit away. I think they need to be established a little bit more first. So I think they can hold off Houston. I think Denver probably passes them. With LA, it's like, do you believe in the combination of LeBron and Luka? I think maybe they could eventually figure something out, but I don't think it happens this year where it's extremely consistent. So I would say they probably end at 3 would be my guess.
I say 2nd or 3rd. I'm right there with you. I like, because it's really going to come down to Denver and the Grizzlies. Like, how do they manage a tough schedule? Denver has the 3rd hardest strength of schedule remaining.
Oh wow, okay.
Grizzlies have the 4th. So it's like, we'll see how they both manage it. But I don't think the Rockets, Lakers, Clippers are catching up. Can I make my hot take real quick?
Yeah.
So rather, this is a pressure cooker take. All right. Minnesota Timberwolves are going to finish in the top 5.
Oh,
They're going to finish in the top 5 in the Western Conference.
wow. Okay.
I don't think.
Go look at their
that's crazy.
schedule. Go look at it right now.
Is it pretty?
It's once you get into March, it starts to get so lame. They're 26th in remaining strength of schedule. The worst. They have the worst win percentage among opponents in the Western Conference remaining. So,
Do y'all think Golden State climbs after this Butler trade, or do you think they end around that play-in
I
spot?
think they'll be right. I tried to have this conversation.
I mean, they're in the play.
One reason, like it's
That's what I'm saying.
worked
You
out
think
pretty
they can
well,
stay
and it
around
looked okay. Jimmy's played well, and Steph is, playing well with Jimmy next to him because there's somebody else that takes the attention away. But like, I was just thinking about it. How many duos in the NBA are better than that one? Like probably 10.
Yeah.
10 duos ahead of a 35-year-old Jimmy Butler and 36-year-old Steph.
Yeah.
Like John Jaren, right?
Yeah.
Let's think.
Shea and
Mitchell
J-Lo.
and Mobley. Mitchell and Mobley, especially the way they've played. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum,
and Brown.
Cat and Brunson. Whew. Giannis and Dame. Like there's so many duos.
Yeah.
That are better than that duo. So I don't know if they're going to make some miraculous comeback. They just had to. And I think Steph Curry said it the right way. Like him and Draymond had a conversation when they traded for Jimmy Butler. Like this is the last one.
This
It's our
is
last opportunity. And it's a kind of lame last opportunity in my opinion.
Yeah.
They're clearly not a team that's built very well. No spacing. Can't really shoot the 3 ball like they once did.
No.
Just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Quentin Post is their starting center. Shout out.
I don't think they do
Who?
much damage. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So let's say the Grizzlies stay at number 2. All right.
Yeah.
Last question about this. Let's say they stay at number 2. Here are the 4 teams that are right now in consideration for the play-in 7-8 seed. Minnesota at 7, Dallas at 8, Sacramento at 9, Golden State at 10. Which of those teams, does any of those teams scare you for the Grizzlies moving
definitely
forward?
not Sacramento.
No.
Mavs at full strength.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. If
They
Anthony
had
Davis,
AD, yeah. I mean,
yeah, they're
AD,
we saw what
Grizzlies
AD
won.
did to him 2 years ago. They could not stop Anthony Davis 2 years ago, and to have him with Kyrie, like that'd be a tough matchup.
And he does kind of
Minnesota too.
he has the potential to even give Jaren, even though Jaren's played unbelievably offensively, he can give Jaren hell.
Yeah, I think you're not scared of Sacramento or Golden State. Obviously, with the Aaron Fox trade, you're not worried about Sacramento.
Timberwolves could be an interesting one.
Timberwolves can be interesting just because
Not as
Anthony
much.
Edwards in the playoffs has just been,
Well, and I want to like, I don't know,
and they're big.
You
I mean,
still have
with
Rudy
Julius
Gobert.
Randle, Nas Reed.
and Nas and like I don't know if the Grizzlies bigs are perfect for that series, but there would be worse. It would be worse things in the world than playing the Timberwolves.
yep, I agree.
Dallas would be the scariest at full, no doubt.
If AD comes back full strength, Dallas will be tough.
Yeah.
A tough out in the playoffs.